Hello, JJ, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Good to have you on. Good to have you join us on the show. We're having a conversation about the presser which you held yesterday, and you talked about the missing containers, 1,328, and we're all wondering how those containers got missing. But before you even throw some more light on that, help us reconcile these figures. Now, there was an interview granted the press sometime in January where you talked about the fact that you had been to the ports and there were 2,500 containers. You found 2,500 containers there. And then also subsequently, Collins was just telling me that in Parliament, you mentioned the 3,000 as a follow-up question by one of your colleagues in Parliament, and you said there were 3,000 containers at the port. And now we're told 1,328 is missing. Help us reconcile and tidy up these figures so that we're all on the same page, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to you. This Collins on the program.
Yes, Collins is here.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good morning. Good morning.
Morning, my brother.
Okay, so what happened is that during the transition, as part of stock taking, the MPP side of the transition indicated that they had about 3,000 containers stuck at the ports, and they were struggling to clear those containers. So that is it. At the transition, they gave us 3,000.
Okay.
Then on assumption of office, I visited the port myself to see for myself the extent of the situation. And when we went to the port, ECG indicated they contracted some private companies to clear their containers. And they had cleared about 500, there was about 2,500. So I felt a bit alarmed. 8,000 figure, 2,500 figure. So I said, look, let's set up a committee. Let the committee investigate, one, circumstances leading to those containers being held at the port. Because we don't even have to have 100 containers stuck at the port. Not even 100. Two, what we can do about the demurrage, which was accumulating and was about 1.5 billion cedis at the time. And then three, and more importantly, how can we clear these containers? And then four, any other related matters with respect to procurement. So there was a 3,000 figure, there was a 2,500 figure. And then when the committee started this work, officially, ECG gave them a figure of about 2,490 thereabout, so about 2,500. And so the committee itself decided that they would do a stock taking of the containers so that they can verify the veracity or otherwise of ECG's claims. Because bear in mind, there was at 3,000, 2,500, and now on paper about 2,490. When they did the actual stock taking, they submitted the report to me yesterday, and the committee chairman was categorical that about 1,300 containers could not be accounted for. On ECG's official document, those containers were supposed to be at the port, but when they went to the port to verify, more than 1,300 containers were missing and could not be accounted for. So that is what I have to say to you.
So this 1,328 is out of the 2,490, supposedly.
Exactly so. Exactly so.
Wow. Collins is just telling us that there was no way these containers could have left the port without the tacit approval of ECG. Do you agree with him?
Well, that's possible. So where are the containers? It's also possible that there's some collusion. In fact, what alarmed me and I got national security to intervene, we had two situations where ECG containers were intercepted by some police officials, and they're even investigating.
When was this?
This should be about a month ago.
Where?
This should be about a month ago.
Where were these
around
containers?
The area. Around the Pong area.
Around the Pong area, okay.
The Pong area.
Okay.
And so when they intercepted them, about 10 or so of them, national security got involved. And so national security coordinator, with my approval, thought that they should secure all the containers so that we don't have these challenges. Because sometimes, even not to doubt anybody, even when people claim that they are helping ECG clear the containers, you never know where they will end. But the record keeping is so bad, there's so much collusion. And so what we have to do now is to launch a criminal investigation into this matter. And I think that, like Colin says, we should be able to trace, to know where the containers are. Because, for instance, if you have 2,490, then it means you ordered those containers. It means a bill of lading were produced. It means that the containers went to a certain port or a certain container terminal. It means that that container terminal received the container. And so somebody took custody of the containers. If the containers were leaving, they could only leave through proper documentation. A clearing agent or company would have cleared those containers. ECG also has warehouses. Somebody should have received those containers. And so if we check the records, we should be able to trace where these containers ended, and then whoever or whichever company is liable will be held responsible. The only way to unravel this is to get the state agencies to conduct a proper criminal investigation into this matter.
Did the report which you sanctioned the committee to produce, did this state, for instance, when the last container moved out of the port?
In fact, what happened was that when they started suspecting it, I wrote a letter to freeze everything. Because let me be frank with you, even those companies, private companies, ECG contracted to clear the containers, they are under investigation. So during the investigation process, we suspended all that in order to get facts about the matter, so that you are sure that people do not move it even as the investigations are ongoing.
College, you want to ask? No, feel free. You want to ask me a question?
John.
Yes.
Yes, my brother. Did the committee speak to any of the former MDs of ECG in their work?
Yes, according to them, they spoke to some of the former MDs. They spoke to former employees, and they depended on official record. I want to ask permission from the president and publish the report. I mean, all of us want to do the right thing, and I do not want to jump into conclusion now. Let's get to the bottom of the matter. That clearly the committee has reported that over 1,300 containers cannot be accounted for. We must trace those containers and determine and find the whereabouts of those containers. That is paramount. And Collins, you know that a container can cost as much as $500,000 US. And so, depending on the items in it. And so, this is a very serious matter. I even asked them what are the items in it. They said that they can't tell me the details of the items in the container. What they've done is that there's container A, it has serial number, it cannot be found. We need to trace those containers and get them.
But John, just a quick one. There are people who actually, in fact, Mr. Kofi Nyantechi, I'm sure you know him, formerly of TV3, one of the directors. He sent a message and said he suspects that it well may be that even the 2,000 or 3,000 information that you're given during the transition period may not have been the case, and that somebody deliberately inflated the numbers in order to, steal from the system. Do you think that's
well,
possible?
Then whoever did that is deceiving public officials.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that happened, because the committee says that they got official information from ECG. And also at the transition committee, it was official information. So if you say that container A, B, C is missing, the container must have a serial number, must it not?
Absolutely.
Yes, it must have a contract that we contracted company A to bring container B, which contains XYZ. It landed at the port on this day, and the bill of lading was presented to ECG, and ECG paid them. So certainly, some money is gone somewhere. So if those containers actually do not exist, then ECG might be paying some funny companies or paying for work not done. So that is also a matter of investigation. And the committee, they were categorical that some containers came, they contain meters, they contain cables, ECG makes the claim that they do not have money to clear those containers, but at the same time, they were awarding contracts for the supply of same material. I mean, that defies logic. It makes no sense. In 2023, ECG went to their board and got approval to procure certain items. By the end of the year, they had procured 700% and above what the board approved for them. That is problematic. ECG had a fully established directorate of procurement. In 2023, they decided to merge that directorate with the estate and premises unit. They collapsed the procurement directorate and brought it under estate and premises and kicked away the procurement director and made the director in charge of estate to become the procurement director alongside being estate manager. That cannot happen. And the committee said that is a clear breach. So these are issues that beyond even the containers. I'm writing to ECG today to decouple the procurement director from the estate department and get a qualified procurement person to head that unit. Because ECG's main function deals with a lot of procurement. So why would you collapse the procurement directorate and bring it under the estate unit? It makes no sense.
John, Collins has a question for you.
John, just as a follow-up to what you just talked about, that in 2023, the procurement division was merged with the estate division. The managing director at the time was Dubik Mahama.
Yes.
And yesterday I spoke to him, and I have his permission to mention his name, that he says he had never been contacted by the committee. I felt that this being a very, very critical point, the managing director at the time should have been contacted. Don't you think so?
Well, I do not want to judge anybody. I constituted a committee. They've done their work. They've submitted their report. They are done. Now, these comments also help. And as minister, I want to be fair to everybody. I want us to follow due process. I want us to do what is right and proper. One, we would launch a criminal investigation into these containers. Two, if it is true that the estate and procurement unit has been met, we have to decouple them, Collins. I guess you agree with me.
I do.
Yeah, so let's do the right things. I'll find out. I mean, yesterday we had a major problem with Tallow. And if you realize, in the evening we had a bit of challenge with power supply. Because Tallow shut their pipeline because of months of unpaid bills. And so yesterday I had to be scrambling, go to finance and sit at finance throughout till some payments were made. Fortunately, the pipeline has been opened again. So yesterday was very tight for me. This is a 103-page document. It was only submitted yesterday, and I responded to their commentary. So these are early days yet. We will do what is right and proper. Everybody will have a fair hearing. If anybody is found culpable, the person will face the full rigor of the law. It's as simple as that.
Now, speaking about indebtedness to ECG, I know, John, you have to leave us at some point, but this civil society organization, ASEC, has put out a very, very disturbing report where it says there's mounting debts and is calling for urgent reforms. And it talks about government spending on energy sector ballooning to 20.8 billion cedis 2024. In 2025, is projected to shoot up to 35 billion with an estimated total shortfall of 140 billion from 2022 to 2026. What is the current state of the indebtedness of ECG as you have come to find out? And if there are any other matters concerning ECG that you want to bring to attention before you take leave of us?
The latest debt as of yesterday stands at about 80 billion cedis.
How much?
80 billion cedis.
80 billion cedis.
80 billion cedis.
Spanning which period to which period?
Well, that is the latest debt. So you have to go back. And you recall that, for instance, in 2016, when we left office, by 2017 September, when the ESLA PLC was launched, the debt was 9.7 billion. So far, ESLA has accrued about 45 billion. But the debt is moved from the 9.7 billion in 2017, September, to today, 80 billion. And that is not the end of it. My worry is the way it is mounting and increasing. So my first target is how to stop the bleeding or begin to reduce it with the aim of turning it around. And so we're doing all the analysis. We're strictly implementing the cash waterfall mechanism. And so ECG used to keep 500 million. I've directed that it should be reduced to about 250 million. In fact, if you follow the cash waterfall strictly, they will get only 46 million. But that will not be enough to even pay salaries. And so we have to be rational and use our heads. So we are managing it and paying the IPPs more money, but we're also working around the clock to reduce dependence on liquid fuel so that we can stop the bleeding. And then we see how we can deal with the legacy debt. But I'm very, very worried about the state of the energy sector. I think that the 35 billion estimated by SF is even on the conservative side. But what I'm seeing, I get very worried, and I must work extra hard with all the other sector players in order to turn around the situation, because it's quite disturbing.